Chatham, Massachusetts is located about 65 miles to the southeast of Taunton. The land that would become Chatham was settled by English colonists beginning in 1656. At that time, it was part of Yarmouth, established as part of the Old Colony in 1639, the same year as Taunton. The settlement was known as Monomoy. Later, it was part of Eastham until Chatham itself was incorporated as a town in 1712. Chatham is home to what was the largest ship-to-shore radio telegraph station in the United States, established in 1921. Today, it is the Marconi RCA-Wireless Museum at the Chatham Marconi Maritime Center and the focus of today's virtual visit.
Hello, welcome to Chatham, Massachusetts, and to the Chatham Marconi Maritime Center. I'm Bob Fishbeck, president of the center. I had the privilege of growing up here on this campus that you will learn more about today. Founded in 2002, the Chatham Marconi Maritime Center is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to celebrate the rich history of 20th century maritime radio and explore the innovative advances in science and technology that continue to transform our lives. The center comprises the historic Marconi RCA-Wireless Museum, an education center offering in-house STEM education programs, principally in the summer months, and an outreach program called Chatham Marconi TechSmart, which brings our proven communications science curricula directly into the classrooms in Cape Cod schools. Our museum welcomes group tours, especially student groups from area schools, to learn about its unique history. The museum's exhibits are complemented by the Chatham Marconi Speaker Series, presenting virtual and hybrid programs. Topics are drawn from the museum's resources, the STEM education program, and other subjects relevant to our mission. Presenting our programs virtually over Zoom has allowed us to engage speakers from distant locations and to reach widely dispersed audiences.
Hi, my name is Ron Farris. I'm the manager of the Marconi RCA Wireless Museum, and welcome to our gallery. This is inside the original operating building, which was built in 1914 by the Marconi Wireless Telegraph Company of America. And so this building is 108 years old this year. While Marconi built the site, the Marconi Company never operated the radio station. They never had the opportunity due to World War I, and it prevented them from getting radio equipment imported into the country. So the building sat idle until after World War I. The original transmitting site was in Marion, Massachusetts, about 40 miles away. And the two stations were connected by a landline, but the operations occurred in this building. This was where all the radio operators did their work, and they actually controlled the transmitters from this building. So everything was done from here. So as you enter the museum, we have a diorama of the property as it was originally built in 1914. There's 9 buildings. They're all still here today. They all still exist. They're all still in use. All owned by the town of Chatham. This museum is a private group that we lease this building and one other building on the site for the museum purposes and our administrative offices and education. The rest of it is owned by the town of Chatham and leased out. Some houses are leased out to the affordable housing program, and there's some other ancillary buildings that are used for other purposes. So this is one of the only sites you'll find in the world that it has an original Marconi constructed buildings still exist and is still in use today. And on the other side we have a diorama of the South Chatham transmitting site. Right after World War II, a new transmitting facility was built in South Chatham on Forest Beach, and replacing the one in Marion. And so that diorama shows that layout. That property has now been restored to nature. It's a conservation land. Everything's been removed. So if you were to go to the beach today, you'd see some concrete pilings that supported the tower. And there's a nice park overlook where the building stood that overlooks Nantucket Sound with some signage and some little bit of history about the site. Behind that is one of the transmitters. That transmitter was one of 17 that was housed inside the transmitting building in South Chatham. And that particular transmitter was on the air nonstop for 20 years, right up until the station closed. So with that, we'll show you around a couple of the exhibits. We have some interactive exhibits. We have certain areas that are set aside for demonstrating some of the functions that took place here, and let's take a look around. So here we are over at the ship-to-shore area. You see in the background here, there's a picture on the wall. This is the inside of the South Chatham Transmitting Building, what it looked like in 1948. In this area here, we have a demonstration of what was called the Creed and Klein. This machine was used to type out messages, not messages, but press, and generating a piece of tape. It would generate a piece of tape, which would run through this machine, and it would send Morse code automatically. Only time automation was used, it was for sending press to ships at sea at night. Any messages that went between ships and the station were done manually. So one of the interactive displays we have, we encourage visitors to push the green button. So this is it's called a Creed tape reader, and it would read this tape. It's got holes in it, and it converts to Morse code. So the transmitters at the station were always on the air, and something was always being transmitted. If we were not communicating with a ship, then this would be sending out what we call the V-slip, which is a station identification. It's providing the ship an opportunity to find our transmitters, find the best frequency. It also provides information as to what frequencies we are currently monitoring. So here's what it sounded like. So I should mention, this is 100 years old. Still works. In this area we have a radio console, a shipboard console that came off the hospital ship, the SS Hope. So this is what a typical radio station on board a ship would look like in the 1960s to early 70s. This still functions. We put it on the air occasionally. As a matter of fact, every Sunday we have a ship-to-shore demonstration where visitors can create a telegram to be delivered to anybody in the United States, and we actually transmit it. They can see it being transmitted from this radio to another radio operator who's sitting at a receiver and see him type it out on a piece of paper, and then it gets put into an envelope and delivered by mail, which is a service that was once performed here years and years ago. It's called a sea letter. So we reenact that, and that's every Sunday. So please join us and come and send a telegram. We also have a couple of examples of the types of keys that were once used. This is called a straight key. That's the letter V. And then it also show a semi-automatic key, which is called a bug. It runs a little quicker, a little more efficient. So come and join us on Sundays, and you can send a telegram to your favorite aunt, uncle, mother, father, daughter, sister, whoever you want in the United States. So now we're over at the receiving position. We have some samples of receivers that were used here dating from the World War II era on that end up until this end is around the early 70s. You can see some pictures on the wall of radio operators, various eras during the history of the station. All the pictures that we have on display on the walls inside of showing radio operators at radio positions are all from inside this building here. This picture is July 1956, the day after the Andrew Doria went down. This is the radio operator who was on duty then. So a lot of history, and we cover a lot of that through interactive displays. You can come and send Morse code here, and watch as we do the ship-to-shore demonstration. This is where the operator would copy the message. Okay, so here we are in what was called the wire department. So when messages came in from ships via Morse code over the radio, and the message, as it was copied by the radio operator, they typed it out on a piece of paper. Well, now we have to get that message delivered to somewhere on land. So the way that's done was the message is handed over to people that working in what we call the wire department. And their job was to type those messages again, punching a piece of tape, generating a piece of tape, such as this. Some visitors say, oh, that's like an IBM punch card. Well, it's a similar idea, but it's not the same thing. But they type all that stuff out, load it in this machine. This machine would read the tape and send the message to its final destination via teletype. So these machines are 100 years old, used here starting right from the very beginning, 1920, and they still work. So we'll give you a quick demonstration on how that all works. This is called a tape perforator. So its function is to perforate tape. Messages were typed out, transferred from the radio operator to this, and sent through this. So these still function, and we're going to show you how it works. So I just perforated the tape. The people in the wire department could read this tape. So they would read it as they're punching it. And that way, if they made a mistake, they could fix it, because mistakes were not allowed. So if you notice, there was one point where I had to hit the button a couple of times. I actually had made a mistake and I had to fix it. I think I fixed it. I may have a typo, but I'm not sure. I was not a wireman. So we're going to load this in. This tape normally would just run from this machine right straight into this one and not get torn off the way I just did it. These guys, this machine ran at 60 words a minute. These guys had to go faster than that because they had to allow themselves time to be able to make a correction if it was a correction necessary. And if this wasn't running, this was costing the company money. So this ran all the time. So they ran from here right straight into this, and this would go out over the wire to a teletype machine. And once again, 100 years old, still works. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to type it out over there. So now we are in the Navy area. During World War II, the Navy took possession of the radio station, which is what the Navy would do at time of war. All the RCA people were transferred out of here, were down to New York City, and the Navy came in, removed all the RCA equipment from inside the building, brought their own equipment in, and it was manned by naval personnel through the duration of World War II. There was about 300 people stationed here at any given time, and about 600 cycled through the station during the war. This was a top secret station. It was called Navy Station C, and they were tasked with intercepting messages between the German High Command and the German U-boats. These messages were encrypted with Enigma machines, so they're all encrypted messages. The radio operators here would copy the messages, and then the messages would be sent down to Washington, D.C. to be decoded in Washington. So the operators here never knew what the content of the messages was, but they did a very important job and saved thousands and thousands of lives from what they did here. The station controlled the entire naval intercept operation for the North and South Atlantic. The Navy had stations from Greenland to Brazil. All those stations were controlled, received their marching orders, so to speak, from this facility. So we have a sample on the wall. There's a picture of what it looked like when the Navy was here during World War II. And there's an example of a receiver, the type of receivers that were used here during the war. So the other side of the Navy exhibit is we have Enigma simulators here. So this is an interactive exhibit where visitors, kids of all ages, can decode encrypted messages. And we have what is called an Enigma simulator, and we have some encrypted messages that people can sit down and try to decode them. Very popular with the kids, and it was an example of the unique function this station did. We have a lot of interpretive panels on the walls explaining how the Enigma machine worked and the progression, how the code was broken, for lack of a better term, and what actually happened here at the station. Also behind me we have, you'll see a picture of a U-boat. This is not Hollywood, that's an actual U-boat that was actually under attack when the picture was taken off Ascension Island. They were successful in sinking that U-boat. We also have an interesting chart on the wall. You can probably see this red line here on your video. These are merchant ships that were sunk at the beginning of World War II. 1,321 merchant ships were sunk by German U-boats. This station came online right here, and you can see that the graph drops in half. They're able to cut in half the losses immediately when this station went on the air. And that continued throughout the duration of the war. And then at the same token, the German U-boat losses started to increase when this station became active. So it was a very significant piece of World War II history. And there are some that say they were able to shorten the duration of the war by a couple of years due to the effort that went on here. So a piece of the significant history of this station is the creation of the Radio Corporation of America, or as we all remember it as RCA. So we have some interpretive panels to explain the creation of RCA, why it was created, and how this station was part of that creation. So we start out here with early reasoning behind technology that was technology of the day, and we're talking about 1919. And this is the U.S. Navy was instrumental in forcing the creation of RCA, and these are the key players in it: Stanford Hooper, Commander Hooper, and Rear Admiral William Bullard of the U.S. Navy. They were instrumental in understanding that it was necessary to create an all-American radio company, and that was their idea. They went to General Electric, Owen D. Young of GE, who actually was the one who created RCA. It's all his fault. And then on this side here, we talk about the technology that we had and the station first going on the air. After RCA was created, the station finally went on the air. First day was 1920. The station was built for the purpose of communicating to Norway. The Norwegian government had requested from the Marconi Company that a station be built in Norway and a counterpart be built in the United States. So Marconi Company was paid by the Norwegian government to build their station in Norway, which he was able to complete. The Chatham site was selected for the purposes of being the station counterpart to the one in Norway. And as I said earlier, they built the facility, they got everything constructed, antennas included, but unable to put in any equipment here because of World War I. So when the war ended, RCA gets control over all the Marconi assets in the United States. Marconi Company disappears from the United States officially in the summer of 1920. But the first day of business for RCA was actually December 1, 1919. And that's when they took possession officially of all the Marconi assets in the States. So this station went on the air on May 17th, 1920. RCA fulfilled the commitment that Marconi had made to provide a point-to-point station, which is country-to-country, for Norway. And May 17th is the Norwegian Independence Day. And that's when this station went on the air. It was a very big event. It was all over the magazines, newspapers. It was a huge event linking Norway to the United States by radio through this radio station. And then finally on this panel we talk about the transition of this station from point to point to ship to shore, which happened in 1921, 1 year later. This became a ship to shore station. It was RCA's flagship station. RCA deemed it Marine Radio Central, and always had the latest technology. RCA was rolled out. As a matter of fact, this was the very first RCA radio station to receive transmitters using vacuum tubes. The newest technology, it was a cutting edge for the day, and this station was the first one to receive that technology. And it is at that point that this station received, when it went to ship to shore, it received the call sign of WCC, which is well known for. Prior to that, it had other call signs for the point-to-point service. So April 1921, we have a log entry from the superintendent's log when this station actually enters the Marine service and becomes WCC. So we have an amateur radio, the WCC Amateur Radio Association here, and we have a small ham shack that is really not part of the museum activity. However, the hams support the museum, and we do a lot about creating exhibits and maintaining exhibits. And we also, on the outside, we have an antenna exhibit trail, and we maintain all the antennas outside. On Wednesdays, we do an amateur radio demonstration. So every Wednesday, the ham shack is open, so people can come in and see amateur radio. We only allow Morse code operation here. It carries on the traditions of the radio station, which is only Morse code. There was never a voice use here. And so we communicate with hams all over the world using Morse code here. We do participate in certain annual events. New Year's Eve is something called straight key night. We do that. We're on the air in April for International Marconi Day, Museum Ships Weekend in June. Maritime Radio Day is another one that's in April. So we do have regular events that we do participate in. Otherwise, there's just a few of us that come in here and use it, and it's whenever we feel like getting on the air, except on Wednesdays. So you're welcome to come on Wednesdays and see it in operation. So here we are at an interactive exhibit. We call it a Morse code kiosk. So the visitors can come and learn how to send Morse code. So there's a video tutorial on how to send Morse code, or there's most of the time is usually somebody on staff that knows Morse code that can help you out. And you learn, we have a straight key for everybody. We have the code spelled out for people, and we encourage them to send their name. A lot of times I tell them you can't leave until you send your name in Morse code. So this is very popular with all ages, and the kids love it especially. So come and try to send your name. We'd love to have you. So in this exhibit we talk about the early Marconi history. We don't go into detail about Marconi's entire life, but the early days of radio. So we have interactive display here where you can actually listen to Marconi's voice. There's a recording of his voice, and some timeline about the progression of the early years of Marconi and how he got into radio. And on the wall, that's the Marconi station in Glace Bay up in Nova Scotia. And the Glace Bay facility is the one that replaced the facility that was once down in Wellfleet at the Marconi Beach in Wellfleet. So the Glace Bay took over the responsibilities that the Wellfleet site was once did. And finally, we have the radio station timeline. We talk about the radio station when it first went on the air and progression up until its closing. So the station officially closed in July 1997. However, the staff was laid off in 1993, and the station was remote controlled by our sister station, which was out near San Francisco. So for the last 4 years of its life, the radio station was remote controlled from San Francisco. There was nobody here except for a technician and an engineer over in the transmitter site, and that was it for the staff. So we have the picture on the wall. This picture, this antenna is actually in the pictures. That's from 1922. That antenna was used here for pinpoint the direction that ships were located. It was common in those days for ships to call into a radio station and ask, "What is my bearing?" They would use that to verify their celestial navigation calculations. And so when they called in, the radio operator here would turn that antenna looking for a null or the weakest signal, and that would pinpoint where that signal is coming from. So that's what that was used for, and it's in the picture up here on the wall, which dates back to 1922. So we are located on Route 28 in Chatham, or Chatham Port. It's 831 or 847 Orleans Road. Both buildings are here on the site. And we are open, in the summertime, we're open Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesday through Saturday is 10 to 4, and Sundays are 1 to 4. We are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. After Labor Day, we'll be open on weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. So that's the story of the museum. I might mention that I've also, the final exhibit is probably me. I am accused of being an artifact because I was once a radio operator here. And as a matter of fact, I have family that worked here from 1928 up until the station closed. So a lot of family history here. So I'm the final artifact, and so come down and say hello, and we're glad to talk to you and show you around. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for visiting with us today. You can learn more about the Center and the Marconi RCA-Wireless Museum by visiting our website, chathammarconi.org, or by following us on Facebook or Instagram. We look forward to seeing you in person on your next visit.